Hey guys, what's up? It's Jules here for WhatCulture.com, and I want to talk to you today about a little game with lofty goals called Kingdoms of Amalur: Reckoning. Now, for those of you who've not played it, it's a single-player action RPG made by 38 Studios, and in short, it's actually pretty great. But what isn't, though, is the story of its development, which not only was filled with more issues than Rich Hudson's private parts, but led to the events that nearly put an entire local economy on the breadline. So gather round as we take a dive into publisher politics. As I'm Jules, this is What Culture, and here's how Kingdoms of Amalur: Reckoning nearly bankrupted an entire state. Now, we begin with its conception. The game was the brainchild of one Kurt Schilling and his development company 38 Studios. Now, if that name seems slightly familiar to some of you, that's because that's the same Kurt Schilling that pitched for the Phillies, the Diamondbacks, and the Red Sox. This will come back later, so keep this in mind. Now, Schilling was a huge fan of gaming, both tabletop and video game alike, and would frequently attend conventions for both, even starting his own in some instances. However, one franchise that he would become heavily associated in was World of Warcraft, and would even become a regular guest on The Instance, which was a WoW-centric chat. His time with the game clearly had an influence on his next business decision, though, as in 2008 he announced that he'd be working on his first video game title, which went under many code names, most notably Project Mercury, which would later become Kingdoms of Amalur: Reckoning. Drawing from his pool of contacts and his high profile, Schilling managed to net the outstanding talents of both Todd McFarlane and R.A. Salvatore. For those of you unaware of how big these two names are to be attached to a project, then take into account that McFarlane has breathed life into comic lines across the multiverse and given us the terrifying and much loved Spawn character. Salvatore, on the other hand, was a writer with such pedigree in creating lore for the likes of Star Wars and the Silent Blade series, which is a fantasy novel that bagged him an Origins reward on the year of its release. As you can tell, it's clear that Schilling wanted his fantasy to carry weight, and it was to be designed by the very best. Salvatore went on to write a full novel's worth of lore for the game during its production, and you can see it in every aspect of the game, from its weapons to its backstory, that hours upon hours were spent in making everything feel convincing within this fantastical setting. Yet, as you can imagine, making a video game with this sort of scope didn't come cheap, and it was clear that Schilling, despite putting in some of his personal fortune into the title, wasn't going to get as far as he would have liked. Enter the Rhode Island Board of Economic Development, a section of the local government that works with the EDA to secure federal funding assistance for people looking to get businesses off the ground, as well as other projects. Now, your chance for success in getting funding from this board depends on what your project will do for Rhode Island, whether it will affect tourism, the local economy, or create jobs. And Schilling proposed the latter when he stated that if he were to receive a bursary, he would be able to bring 450 jobs to the state by 2012, through the creation of 38 Studios and developing the game there. They accepted his proposal. Oh boy, did they accept. Rumours circulate that this was because the board was instantly impressed with the name value of having the Kurt Schilling in Rhode Island, so greenlit an astonishing $75 million into the project. $75 million. That is some serious walking around money, and all of it was sunk into Kingdoms of Amalur: Reckoning, which began development immediately, and most likely with a massive smile on the faces of those involved and the 160 employees that they brought with them to their new studio location of Empire Plaza, Rhode Island in 2011. Now, these smiles, however, were probably not likely shared with Rhode Island economists nor the taxpayer if they'd been made aware that such a massive chunk of money was going onto a video game. You know, that thing that people exiting a recession are less likely to buy because of being shrewd with money. Reports stated that for 38 Studios to come even close to clawing back this money, it would need to be releasing hit after hit without any mistakes or missteps for years to come. Not even current AAA publishers can maintain that sort of consistency usually. However, on they slugged, and through their work signed up with EA to publish the game and acquired another developer, Big Huge Games, to help them flesh out the fantasy world. And let me tell you, there was a ton to flesh out, seeing as Salvatore had gone on to create over 10,000 years of lore for the world. Now, this seems reflective of the whole 38 Studios business practice, excess in every area, who doled out money like it was part of the Wolf of Wall Street. People took home large wages, everyone felt secure, everyone felt like they were going to change the face of gaming. everyone was wrong. In 2012, when the game released, it was met not with the rapturous praise that it had anticipated, but a general vibe of, yeah, it's good. It's very good even, just not amazing. A demo released prior to launch, while cleverly timed promotional item unlocks to Mass Effect 3 gathered a lot of attention, but only for how broken the demo of the game actually was. Sponsorships and collaborations with the likes of Ice-T, and yet more investments that just didn't see immediate returns. And while the game did manage to shift over 1.5 million units in 90 days after launch, this was nowhere near the 3 million it needed just to break even. To be completely clear, that is amazing sales for a new IP, but it's clearly miles away from the absurdly high requirements of return. Then it came time to pay the piper. After all, that $75 million loan was indeed a loan. On the 1st of May 2012, a bill arrived for $1.125 million, the first of many intended repayments. And how did 38 Studios respond? They just said no. As you can imagine, this sent panic through the Economic Development Board. After all, they wanted to make a video game industry in their state, and their first project was now bombing hard. It was, as the new head of the Rhode Island Board of Economic Development would put it, one of the worst investments they had ever made. Numerous back and forths occurred between 38 Studios and the Rhode Island reps. Checks were hand-delivered that then bounced, payrolls for the employees were missed, and all the way through this, the board went on smiling and assuring things were going well. It was like seeing a couple arguing over who was going to foot the bill in a restaurant, only to zoom out and see that the whole building's on fire. The writing was on the wall, and in late 2012, 38 Studios declared bankruptcy. An email sent out by Schilling informed his employees that they were terminated, and dreams of a sequel went up in smoke. However, the fire still had some embers left, and in November 2012, Schilling was sued by Rhode Island itself for squandering its money and setting the state back a long way on their road to economic recovery. The state only managed to get $4.5 million back, meaning that the biggest fantasy tale that Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning managed to weave was that of the disappearing coin purse. It's a real shame, because it's not like there weren't good intentions, and the subsequent 2 DLCs for the game were actually really fleshed out and had a lot of love put into them. But the real issue lies with the fact that the Economic Development Board should have never signed such a huge chunk of money away without a better means of claiming it back. It wasn't just a wad of cash they had lying around, it was taxpayer money that could have been used to improve the lives of others or better the state in other ways. It was a significant impact on the spending of the state, and in a time of already fragile economies, was simply the wrong move that ended up costing jobs of those it sought to provide with. Kingdoms of Amalur is a fine game. It's something that is a labour of love from start to finish, packed with content, and has a brilliant arcadey-like fighting system that doesn't feel stale even hours after playing. But it didn't set the world on fire. But it wasn't a technical failure. Commercially though, well, Dead Kell's looking pretty sprightly in comparison, if you catch my drift. And there we go. That is the kind of sad tale of Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning and how it almost bankrupted an entire state. Let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. But before you go, I want to talk to you about another slightly better investment, this t-shirt. I've been working at WhatCulture for 2.5, nearly 3 years now, and this is the first piece of merchandise I've been allowed to put out on the company. It means a huge deal to me because this place is my home. I love working for WhatCulture, and I just want to share that with you guys as well. This has been my little tale. Now let me finish it off the only way I can by ruining it and talking about a plug to go to shop.whatculture.com and get some of Jules all over you. That didn't sound right. Anyway, as always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Follow me at RetroJ with a 0 over on Twitter, and I will speak to you soon. Bye!